Secrets of the Queen's Coronation Gown. Hello and a warm welcome back to my channel. My name is Miranda Holder. I'm a celebrity stylist, your feel-good fashion coach and a royal fashion commentator. And today I'm going to share the secrets of the Queen's coronation gown and tell you a few things that you probably didn't know. In this video, we're going to get to know the gown's designer, Sir Norman Hartnell. I'm going to reveal the other designs that didn't make the cut, why the final design did meet with the Queen's approval, and at the end I'm going to discuss a little detail that almost scuppered the whole project and a final secret sentimental flourish that made it very special. So this very special gown was made by Sir Norman Hartnell. Born in 1901, he was the star couturier in the interwar years and gained fame, popularity and celebrity by being the chief couturier to the royal family. Sir Norman was born in London and became passionate about fashion through his devotion to West End musicals. He would rush to see the latest show, sit as close as he could to the stage and absorb all the wonderful glittering costumes. The more ostentatious and fabulous the better, and then he'd dash home and recreate everything as faithfully as he could through his watercolour paintings, with which he was very, very talented and actually came very much into play in his career with the Queen at a later date. The glitzier, the better for Sir Norman. He loved every embellishment, all the colour, all the sparkle, and all of the drama. And he famously said towards the height of his career that he hated or despised simplicity because it negated everything beautiful. I think the very famous minimalist Coco Chanel would have had a little word to say about that. Sir Norman attended the prestigious Cambridge University reading modern languages and started to design rather fabulous costumes for the Theatrical Footlights Society. These started to gain a lot of notoriety and the press took an interest, and then one day he had a rave review from the Evening Standard which changed everything for the designer. Sir Norman then left the university early and returned to London to start designing in earnest. He would make fantastic embellished creations for all of his well-heeled friends. Society girls then learnt about him and came to him to get dressed up to the nines, and then his clientele got very exciting and he dressed the likes of Vivian Leigh, Marlene Dietrich and Elizabeth Taylor. But it wasn't until the mid-1930s that Sir Norman's relationship with the royal family truly began. In 1935, Lady Alice Montagu Douglas Scott came to the celebrated young designer to ask her to create a wedding dress for her marriage to the Duke of Gloucester. She also asked him to design some dresses for the bridesmaids, which just happened to be our Queen, the young Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret. The Queen Mother happened to also be in attendance at the wedding, and she fell in love with Lady Alice's dress to such an extent that she immediately hired Sir Norman Hartnell herself, and they started working together very closely, a relationship which lasted for the rest of Sir Norman's life. The Queen had him design many, many outfits for her, including an entire tour wardrobe for North America and Canada in 1939. And then in 1977, she made history by awarding him the first designer to have ever been given this, a Knight of the Royal Victorian Order. But it was, of course, our late Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, who had the most famous relationship of all with Sir Norman Hartnell, and he did, of course, go on to design her wedding gown in 1947. The stunning gown was inspired by Botticelli's Primavera and featured beautiful silver embroidery in the shape of garlands of flowers, crystals, and 10,000 seed pearls. It was a roaring success. Sir Norman Hartnell also went on to design Princess Margaret's wedding dress, and then in a lovely turn of events, the Queen lent Princess Beatrice a very special vintage dress, also designed by Sir Norman, to wear on her own wedding day in 2020. The Queen originally wore this dress to the premiere of Lawrence of Arabia, and it was absolutely exquisite. Partly due to the great success of her wedding gown and the close relationship that Sir Norman had with the entire royal family, it would seem, it would be only a natural choice that Queen Elizabeth would request Sir Norman to make her coronation gown, which really was no mean feat and a very, very defining moment, if not the defining moment, of his entire career, and he felt the pressure. He went away and created several sketches, which he then presented to Her Majesty for them to peruse together. The first design was very, very simple and quite similar to the dress that Queen Victoria had worn for her coronation, and featured the Greek key design around the hem. The second was a very modern, slim-fitting sheath gown embroidered in gold. The third was a beautiful crinoline-style dress in white satin, embroidered with silver lace, crystals, and diamonds. The next was embroidered with depictions of the Madonna, together with arum lilies featuring tumbling pendant pearls. The fifth design completely flouted tradition, which historically would dictate no colour was allowed apart from perhaps a little touch of silver or gold. This one was rich in colour and was embroidered and emblazoned with amethysts, rubies, topaz and opals even. It featured colourful embroidery of violet, roses and wheat. Sir Norman Hartnell was rather nervous about this option as it was slightly left field, but the Queen made him feel perfectly at ease and said that colour was an option. The next, also in white satin, featured oak leaves and acorns in copper, silver and gold thread. The seventh featured appliqued Tudor roses of England all over the skirt with looped fringes of golden crystals. And the eighth was very, very similar to the seventh, featuring appliqued designs of all the emblems of the United Kingdom in white and silver. Sir Norman and the Queen perused all of these designs in the form of his beautiful paintings together, and the Queen selected number 8. But being the Queen, with an interest in fashion and a very strong sense of duty, she made a couple of adjustments of her own. Sir Norman anticipated that the Queen would want a gown in white with perhaps a few silver embellishments based upon what Queen Victoria had worn at her coronation. But Queen Elizabeth reminded Sir Norman that at the time it was 1938 and Queen Victoria was a mere unmarried 18. And as a married lady of slightly more senior years, not a lot, but slightly more, she could warrant a little bit of colour. The Queen also requested that besides the motifs of the United Kingdom, Sir Norman add the emblems of the Commonwealth. So Sir Norman created a beautiful gown which included the English Tudor rose, the Scots thistle, the Welsh daffodil, the Irish shamrock, Canadian maple leaf, Australian wattle, New Zealand silver fern, South African protea, Indian lotus flower, the lotus flower of Ceylon, and Pakistan's wheat, cotton and jute. And the result was breathtaking. The dress, which was ordered in October 1952, took 8 months of design, research and craftsmanship to make. Its intricate embroidery required many hours of diligent work by 3 dressmakers, 6 embroideresses, and the Royal School of Needlework itself. The special silk used to make the gown came from Lady Hartdyke's silk farm at Lullingstone Castle. And the magnificent robe of estate, which the Queen wore over the top, was made by royal robe makers Ede and Ravenscroft and took 12 embroideresses using 18 different types of gold thread. And it took more than 3,500 hours to complete and was finished in May 1953. The Queen looked absolutely breathtaking in this gown, and it was made in the traditional and fashionable silhouette of the time, which was based, of course, on Dior's new look, that fit and flare design that actually suited the Queen so perfectly and was everywhere in the 1950s. In addition to the coronation gown itself, Hartnell also designed a plain white linen robe known as the Colobium Sindonis, which initially covered the gown during the ceremony. Attached to the shoulders was a crimson velvet mantle edged with ermine and featuring 2 rows of delicately embroidered gold lace and gold filigree. On the big coronation day, the 6 maids of honour carried this robe behind Her Majesty the Queen. The Queen's coronation is probably the last grand-scale coronation the world will ever see, and there were 8,000 people in attendance at Westminster Abbey, which had to close months and months in advance in order to build the special seating to house everybody. They literally had tiered stands, a bit like football stands. The place was very, very hot, and I think health and safety these days would have a little bit of a nightmare. The Abbey was so packed that a lady-in-waiting famously fainted, possibly because of the crowding and overheating, possibly because her dress was too tight, or possibly because she was too busy to have breakfast that morning. Either way, she did pass out, she was caught by a friendly face, and then the story differs as to what happened after that. But my favourite version is that she had a nip of the Archbishop of Canterbury's brandy that he kept secreted in his robes. What I love about this dress, and what isn't that well known, is that it has to be the ultimate rewear. The Queen did not just consign it to hang in a museum or the palace archives. Oh no, she actually wore it several times, we think about 6 after that, to the state opening of Parliament in Australia, New Zealand, Sri Lanka and Canada, which was a lovely touch as people that couldn't make the coronation themselves because it was too far away got to see the dress in person, and it really did deserve to be seen. Now, I've promised you the story of the little factor that almost scuppered the entire gown, and it was indeed a vegetable. Yes, you heard that correctly. So Sir Norman Hartnell, and he can very much be forgiven for thinking this, thought that the national emblem for Wales was actually a daffodil. Daffodils are synonymous with the country and are very beautiful and attractive and aesthetically pleasing flowers. But he got corrected by the Earl of the Garter that actually he had to use a leek to be properly correct. He was very disappointed and very disparaged by this fact, and reports going away and literally tearing his hair out and just wondering how on earth he could make a leek look good. He then reports going to his own kitchen garden, pulling up the vegetable himself and being slightly more optimistic that he could actually make it look half decent. And indeed he did, because the leek takes pride of place at the top of the skirt on the gown and looks just stunning. Finally, the sentimental secret detail that's very, very touching. Sir Norman Hartnell worked very closely with the Queen throughout his life and much of her reign, and as we know, has designed many, many outfits, but none have been so important or defining or momentous as this beautiful coronation gown. He knew the Queen was a little bit nervous. She was always beautifully composed in his presence and actually with everyone, but he understood the great pressures that were on this young woman. So without telling her anything, he very lovingly wove an extra emblem onto the skirt itself. He placed it right underneath where her left hand would rest during the ceremony, as all this had been painstakingly rehearsed, and it was actually a 4-leafed shamrock, an extra shamrock, but also with an extra leaf, because this little motif is synonymous with auspiciousness and good luck, and I feel it totally worked. As of course we know, the Queen went on to have a very long, very successful reign of over 70 years, the longest reign of any head of state, any female head of state in history. I really hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and let me know what you thought about it. I do love to chat about everything to do with royal fashion and the royal family, so please leave me your comments below, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.